One could argue that there are two types of people: those who enjoy being single and those who really don't. Some people find it exciting, some people find it scary, but we can all agree that being single is a unique experience. It gives us a certain feeling of freedom. For them, being single does not mean lonely. On the contrary, this is the ideal time for them to discover their own abilities and focus on developing the path they want to pursue. Relationship expert and best-selling author Susan Winter says, "Relationships are emotionally costly. Intimacy takes up a lot of space in our heads. Although much of this happens unconsciously, the ability to focus thoughts on the individual will be less," Winter said. According to Winter, when we love, we are forced to care and worry about our lover, sometimes thinking about even the smallest quarrels. This type of stress can hinder happiness by keeping us from living in the present. Emotional dissonance can be all-consuming because it takes us away from the present moment and circumstances, whether in a quarrel or worried about your lover's health and happiness. This is always true, Winter analyzed. On the contrary, being single leaves room for new thoughts and dreams to develop. As for Western society, they always have to struggle with the issue of what unmarried women should do. For example, in the Middle Ages, many religious fanatics persecuted individuals they believed to be witches. Communities always focus on single women, who are considered unusual in this era, not just because they have doubts about their alternative lifestyle, but also because of a collective sense of guilt about their inability to serve or care for them. The term appeared in the mid-1300s to refer to spinning workers, a low-paying job and one of the few jobs available to unmarried, lower status women. Most of them still live in the family home, where their financial contributions are certainly greatly appreciated. The term is not stigmatized and is mostly used as a surname, like Smith, Mason, or Taylor. Single status comes with unusual legal and economic freedoms. While the feudal laws of haute couture gave men absolute power over their wives, unmarried women were the only type of woman with the legal right to own and sell property, sign a contract, represent yourself in court, or keep a salary. It wasn't until the late 18th century that people began to look down on unmarried girls, and that's largely thanks to the poets, playwrights, and other trendsetters of the time, who turned her into one of the most pitiful creatures in literature and, by extension, society. They mocked women who had never been married with caricatures to criticize their stupidity, cowardice, and monstrosity. As the empire policy proceeds, women who cannot or do not want to reproduce are considered useless, selfish, or both. An 1851 census revealed that a byproduct of the Napoleonic Wars and the colonization process is a generation of surplus women, numbering in the millions. Some suggested taxing their finances, while others called for forced emigration. In the end, however, it was the Victorians, with their tireless sense of purpose and the power of association skewed the single woman, supported her rebellious spirit that fueled feats of political and social reform. Because of their poverty, never married women pioneered the path to the first female professions, from tutoring to nursing, and expanding into typing, journalism, academia, and law. They became philanthropists and agitators, educators, and explorers. It's no surprise that modern spinsters feel conflicted about their status when Professor Paul Dolan, a behavioral scientist at LSE, published research confirming that single women without children are happier than those who are married. He was very surprised by a part of the people's response to his statement. "I had lots of emails from single women saying thank you," says Dolan, because now people might start believing them when they say they're actually doing all right. But more interesting was the reactions from people who didn't want to believe it, such as, there was something really insulting about choosing not to get married and have kids. It's all right to try and fail, but you'd better try. So with these competing narratives, you would be challenged internally as a single woman, where your experiences are different to what they're expected to be. Of course, whether or not an unmarried person is satisfied with his or her status depends not only on personality, her situation and mood at the time we ask, but also depends on the two-dimensional definition of satisfaction. We have trouble remembering that, Dolan says, because our human psychology doesn't handle nuance well. Almost everything you experience is a bit good and a bit bad. But with marriage and singleness, it's not voiced the same way. You've ticked off this box and got married, so you must be happy. The divorce rates show that's categorically untrue. It is definitely time to change the rules and the conversation. As the number of never married women grows, we should be honest about what it means to be one. We should celebrate our identity and the experiences life has given us. Why not start by withdrawing that dreaded word? As we age, the gap between our life experiences and our general perspectives widens. But in human nature, there are always contradictions. They may have conflicting emotions at the same time. On the one hand, being single is completely fine and they can have a good life. On the other hand, they feel like they're missing out on something, and they wonder if there's something wrong with them. When we turn 30, being single suddenly becomes a little more complicated. Suddenly, the pool of available partners seems much smaller, and being alone can be discouraging. Suddenly, the pool of available partners seems much smaller, and being alone can be discouraging. It makes us, those who have long been unbound by anything, ask ourselves big questions that we cannot, dare not, or articulate to others. Are we missing out on the greatest emotions humans can have? Will we slide into selfishness, loneliness, or mediocrity? Who will be with us when we grow old? And is a life without intimate physical companionship one half loved and half lived? Within the current feminist narrative, there is a strong sense that the answer to each of the above questions is no, or don't ask these questions at all. When we make statements that we'll never get married by the time we're 22, or decide to quit our job and move to a place we've never been before when we're 28, we will definitely receive a lot of special feedback. If we are in a special relationship. However, when we are in our 30s, friends and family members may notice that we have enough life experience to make the right decisions for ourselves. And if we're single, that means we don't have to explain those choices to anyone. Single doesn't become a refuge. nor does it become a place we have to flee from. Being single becomes a legitimate and powerful place to live, love, and build a life.